Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again for another episode of my Amplifying Melanated Voices in the Community series. Today we have Cecilia from Coco Verde Vegan, and I want her to jump in and tell us a little bit about herself.
Great. So again, my name is Cecilia. I got so excited I knocked my computer a little bit. Yes. And of course, talking with my hands always. So I am so excited to be here with you today, Timna. It's so great. I am waiting and so excited for the day that we can finally connect in person. But until now, this Zoom has given me life. But yeah, so I'm one half, or sometimes I like to say 1/3, because Ivanna, our daughter, is definitely a big influence in the business. But I'm one half of Coco Verde Vegan. Ivannoe, my husband, is the other half. And we started back in 2018. And so we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary of creating dishes that are inspired by our childhoods, are inspired by our experiences, both as Dominicans, as Latinos, and being able to bring a plant-based kind of twist or perspective onto some of our favorite dishes.
Awesome. And how has the response been from the communities that you've lived in? Obviously in our cultures, in Puerto Rican and Dominican cultures, meat is number one. Whether it's pernil or sancocho with all of the meats and, everything, how has that kind of been? How has that reaction been?
Yeah, definitely like a shock at first, like a total shock from like just not even understanding, not even having like a frame of reference for like what is it to be vegan and not eat meat or any animal-based products at all.
Sure.
It's like shock. And one story that I really love is just, and I'll tell it because it's a similar, different, it happens differently with different people, but it's a very similar concept. So like, my aunt was visiting from the Dominican Republic, and she came and she was like, just like saying like, y todo esto de lo vegano, and like, y es verdad que tú no comes carne, and like, what, like, because like this idea que like, tú no comiste si tú no comiste carne. It's like, you haven't eaten if you haven't eaten meat. Like, you haven't had a real meal if you haven't eaten meat with your meal. And so she was very skeptical, but so I was just kind of, I don't typically, with the vegan stuff or the plant-based stuff, I don't typically challenge people at all. I'm just kind of like, okay, like that's fine. That's your opinion. And it's worked out better for me to kind of just lead by example, or just kind of like let people into the world by tasting and by seeing. Sure. And so with her, she was staying at our house, and she saw me cooking. I think I was making lentils that day. She saw me cooking it, and she was like, oh, like that smells good. What are you making? What are you doing? All this stuff. And so it's just like little by little. And then she tried it and she was like, this is so good. And I like made her a smoothie and she loved it. She asked me for the recipe, like, so it was just a lot of, and that's really how it's been with a lot of folks, even when we do events and things like that in the Latino community. So we'll do events like in the vegan and plant-based community, and we'll do events like in the Latino community. And especially we did a lot of events in JP up before the pandemic. And a lot of folks will be kind of like, what? Like vegan Latino food, vegan Dominican food, like that exists? Like what is that even like? Yeah. But then once they try it and they taste it, they're like, oh, this is really good. Like, oh, like this. And it kind of, because we use so many of the same, we use the same seasonings, we use the same kind of inspiration, sure. It still feels like home, which is what we wanted. We wanted to create food that gave that same feeling and that same, that held up that tradition.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you and I have been following each other on Instagram for a while, so I've been able to see a lot of your dishes. And I mean, I will try anything and will eat anything. And I have fallen in love with a lot of plant-based meals that I've had, because I think it's awesome to be able to experience new ways of eating something that you've always eaten, right? And that being said, what have been some of your favorite iterations of meals that you've had, I don't know, growing up, or that you've now transitioned into being plant-based?
For sure. I think it's one of those things when people ask me this, I'm always like, I don't know. Cause it's like asking somebody like, what's your favorite song? Or, you know, it's like, you're like, it's
Sure.
so dependent on like your mood and the weather and everything. But I think I always kind of come back to like our vegan version of the pescado con coco, because it was just like, it was my favorite. It was one of my favorite dishes growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a fish, just for everyone else, if you don't know, it's a fish and coconut kind of tomato-y dish. And so it's kind of, the fish is kind of braised in the tomato coconut sauce, and it's just really, it's just delicious. And like the fish is supposed to be super tender and all this stuff. And so it was really amazing when we were able to kind of veganize that. And it just, you know, it's a dish that reminds me of my grandmother, and she's made it for me so many times. And so that is like one of my favorite dishes. But I think, again, it's one of those things that's hard to choose, because it's so like, so many, all of the meals that we create are really tied to memory and tied to the tradition. And so behind every dish, there's one of those stories of like, oh, this person used to make that for me, or like, this is how I feel. I remember being at the beach and eating the spaghetti, or like, I remember, because Dominicans eat spaghetti on the beach, or I like, you know, I remember doing this, and like, and that's what I was eating. And so it's kind of, I always think of it as the, like that Ratatouille moment, you know, at the end of Ratatouille, when he's eating, the chef, the critic is eating the Ratatouille, and it brings him right back to like his childhood and his mom serving him the Ratatouille to make him feel better after school. And it's like, a lot of our dishes, that they really come from the heart, and that's really what we're trying to convey when we cook.
Yeah, I really love that. I really like that sense of connection to your own roots, but also being able to communicate that with the rest of the community, right? Because, you know, as a small business, it's so important to be able to connect, both on a personal level, but, you know, on a larger scale. And I really have seen you both do that. And honestly, seeing your daughter just get so involved has been so cute. It's great to see that on my feed.
Awesome. It's awesome. I just love, because as she gets older, she just gets so, you know, more and more interested, and she just like loves cooking, and she has her little stool in the kitchen now, and she'll like, you have to kind of watch your feet in the kitchen, because she'll like slam the stool right on top of your feet to try to get up on the counter and see what you're doing. But she loves it. She loves like, you know, the measuring and all that stuff. It's just been really great to not only that she loves to eat, but that she also like likes to be part of the process. It's just been really cute.
Absolutely. And so how can people either learn more about your business or order food? Because I know you do catering, and I know you do some private stuff. So how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we're across the board on social media. We're at Coco Verde Vegan. And we are primarily catering because of the pandemic, and just because we also realize that not everybody wants to not everybody hosts catered events. We're really excited to be announcing very soon catered individual meals, and so we're excited to be able to offer that to folks, to be able to, you know, pick and choose and choose a couple of dishes that they want to eat, instead of going by like half tray and full tray and all of that. And so yes, feel free for folks who want to learn more, follow us. I love DMs, send me a DM, I'm happy to talk. Yeah, and all of that.
Awesome. So one of the reasons I am doing this series, as you know, is because we're going through a very difficult time right now, not just in the US, honestly, across the world, on our own island. You know, because we know that racial disparity also takes place in the Dominican Republic and in Puerto Rico. But, you know, it's really about amplifying Black and brown voices in our community. And so you guys obviously fit the bill, and you're doing something very unique to our culture. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, how you're feeling, and kind of moving forward, what you see, you know, what changes could be done, both in the food world, and to get even more niche, the plant-based world. And you know, within your own community, you know, what do you hope to see, and what are your thoughts?
Whew. I have so many thoughts. A lot of thoughts. So feel free to interrupt me if it gets too long-winded.
No
Um,
worries.
yeah, I mean, how I'm feeling, I'm just so, I am so exhausted, and it's especially, it's always hit me hard, obviously, always, but especially as a mom, I think it's just, it, it just takes it to the next level where it's just like, it hurts even more. It's hard to explain. It's just like, but motherhood is really, um, it's amplified the urgency because it's just, it's this transformation, or at least for me, it's been, you're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for somebody else. And you just wish so badly that the world could be different, that we, and so I've been working in racial equity for over 10 years now. So in my other professional life, I am a doctoral candidate at Brandeis. I study racial health equity. So a lot of this, our own transition to being plant-based, was really rooted in a lot of that, in racial justice and social justice, like thinking about, so first and foremost, the planet, and how just unsustainable animal agriculture is at the scale that we're doing it. It's a fact, it's unsustainable. And also learning about the environmental racism of primarily Black people, and also a lot of low-income people that live by the hog farms, experience incredible amounts of cancer rates and things like that because of the pollution from the hog farms. And so, and thinking about it on all these different levels, thinking about racial redlining within the cities, and inequitable access to fresh foods and fruits and vegetables and all of that. And then knowing the connections between having or consuming heavily animal product-based diets and connections with diabetes and high blood pressure, right? So like the American Diabetes and the American Heart Association have come out and said that plant-based diets and inclusions of plant-based meals in diets are very helpful in preventing and controlling these diseases. And so from a public health perspective, that's definitely where I see kind of Coco Verde sitting. And because like this, that's really where our heart was rooted. So it was very much in thinking about what we wanted to do for ourselves, what we wanted to do for the planet. Ivanna was like, our big kind of catalyst in beginning that thinking process in terms of what we wanted to feed her. But yeah, I think that I feel very hopeful because I feel like there's a lot more accountability going on right now. I think from just coming as like somebody that has been studying this forever and feeling like I have to prove this, talking about even, I worked at Southern Jamaica Plain Health Center for 3 or 4 years before going into my doctoral program. And we would do trainings called Racism in Health. And there were so many times where people would come to the training and not even understand racism as a concept, or that race isn't biological. And so having to, I think what I'm just trying to get at, it's just like, it's mind boggling to be in this place where there are still a lot of people that feel that way, that still can't even understand racism as a concept, don't want to acknowledge it when it's like right there in your face. When like, how many times does it have to be caught on video? How many times does this have to happen? How many statistics do we have to prove? Like all of this stuff. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, we shouldn't have to write entire dissertations about our experience for you to believe us. And I was like, whoa, because that's what I'm doing right now with my own dissertation. And so I feel very much that, and I feel very much a lot of hope just in terms of the mobilization, the accountability. I was just talking to Ivannoe about how the pandemic has put us in a place where we're able to organize in a way that we haven't been able to before, because people aren't working standard jobs. It's opened up a space where people are able to be more engaged. And so it's almost a blessing in that sense. I hesitate to say it that way because so many people have passed away and so many people have been affected, and that's horrible. And also we have this little pocket of hope kind of coming from there, where it's like, well, we're able to organize in a way that we haven't been able to previously. So long-winded answer, but I think it's just, I'm feeling kind of all the feelings for sure.
Yeah, it's understandable. I think that with the pandemic, we've also had access to so much more because we have been at home.
Mm-hmm.
So social media, whether good or bad, has been a huge catalyst
Mm-hmm.
in transforming the way we view things because we're at home,
Yes.
because we weren't doing normal day-to-day things. And I think because people were stuck inside for 3 months, that they had to evaluate what was in front of them because it was coming at them much faster and more powerful than it had been in the past. I mean, we're looking at the biggest civil rights movement in our history,
Yep.
which is mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I'm sad that we still have so many of these problems now in 2020. Um, but I think that something to note is that there are lots of changes happening, and I've been seeing them daily. It feels like, people are mobilizing, they're donating, they're protesting. I mean, the global protests in and of themselves have just been incredible to watch.
Yes.
And those who don't feel like they can are doing things on the back end. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've seen the most. And of course, there's going to be negativity, and there's still going to be racism, and there's still going to be those pockets of awful people. But I think for the most part, I've been seeing real change. That has been eye-opening even for myself, someone who has dealt with racism all her life. It's still teaching me something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, I really feel that. And I think the last part of your question that I had forgotten to answer, my long-winded response, actually kind of ties into that. But just thinking about racism in the Dominican Republic and in other all over the world globally, but specifically speaking to the Dominican Republic as my family is from there. Having had so many conversations with family and really kind of like hit up against a wall, and a lot of those conversations, people not understanding why I identify as Afro-Latina, people, just like lots of stuff there, and lots of work to be done. And it has been so heartening to see so many young people mobilizing on the island, like bringing Black Lives Matter to the island,
Yes.
creating the language, because that was something that's so huge too. Like, for me, having to learn the racial justice language, like how to talk about things and how to understand like the systems and the structures and all of that stuff here in English, and not really necessarily having that language in Spanish, and seeing that being kind of lifted up and celebrated, and seeing that stuff happen. That's been happening for so long, but again, with social media and with all these things being amplified, it's easier to see and easier to kind of connect with that information. So I think that definitely has been so that's like really made me happy to see that happening, and to see that it's we have a long road ahead of us everywhere, all around the world.
Sure.
But it's really beautiful to see that starting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it happened, but it took this for me to know certain things about Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I found a publication called Revista Etnica
Mm-hmm.
that is incredible. I mean, I never heard about them before, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And, they have opened my eyes to so many things happening in Puerto Rico. And like you said, the language that's coming out from this, and, putting it into our Spanish language, and kind of making people understand it in that way, because we're so programmed. Like, obviously we speak English and we're here, so it's different for us and what we see. But I was really inspired by what I was seeing from them, and kind of what's happening, in Puerto Rico. I think one of the first protests was in Loíza.
Historically Black, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, this is awesome. I mean, obviously, on the islands, we have our own issues, colorism and racism, and, it's so ingrained, whether it's about our hair or, being darker than everybody else, or not fitting in, or whatever it might be. But then you also have huge part, at least in Puerto Rico, of the island that we don't even go to because we were told all our lives, oh, don't go over there, or don't, it's not safe.
Yep.
Or, you know what I'm saying? And I'm so sad that it's taken me this long, but I'm really glad that it's finally kind of coming to the forefront.
Absolutely.
And we definitely have our own issues that we have to face, that some are different than here in the U.S., but many are similar. And I think that's the connection that we all need. But yeah, it's been great to see. I really, really hope it continues.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, at least in the DR, there's just such a like white is right mentality, and there's a lot of like American, like United States or European kind of aspirational like mentality, which is really hard to like, and even like when talking to people about it, they don't want to like acknowledge that or see that. And I think it's obviously and absolutely the work of imperialism and colonialism and all of that's in this the very deep histories, like thinking about Trujillo and the dictator that was there for 30 years and was very much advancing racist ideologies. But it's still, I think it's still very difficult for the masses to understand and accept that there is racism that needs to be dealt with within the country. And again, it's very similar to Puerto Rico. There's just so much colorism and so much kind of anything that anyone darker than us that we can step on to make ourselves more white or try to elevate ourselves at all is like, there's so much of that. And like I was just talking, somebody was saying like somebody so excited that there was a Starbucks opening in the Dominican Republic, and I was like, you're excited about the Starbucks? Like you have better coffee in the Dominican Republic than they serve at Starbucks, and you want to be like with pumpkin spice latte or whatever, and it's just kind of like no.
I want my cafecito puro.
Exactly. Like that's what I want, and there's so much of that, even histories with, I was just talking to my cousin about this the other day, just like with like even with the Spanish and how there's still so much control over the island. Like the Spaniards are the ones that own a lot of the resorts, and all that money is just it doesn't stay in the Dominican Republic. Like yes, of course they hire staff there, but at very low wages with very poor working conditions, and then all that money is like taken out of the country. And so it's just kind of like my hope is through this movement that there's more of that. There's more focus on small businesses, more focus on Dominican owned businesses, more focus on dismantling these structures that affect everyone.
Absolutely. So kind of segueing into more community-based projects. I know that you were involved heavily in the previous community that you lived in. But now that you're here with us, how are you hoping that your business can really, and yourself can really get into the community, build awareness, both with food, racial equity, and kind of how are you thinking you guys are going to do that?
Yeah, excellent question. We love it here. I think I commented this on the thread between me, you, and Rita, that when we first moved here, we first moved to Lowell a year ago, the first weekend that we were here, we went out to eat, and it was the Midsummer Festival. And we were like, what's going on? Like, this is so cool. Like, it's just, and then it was just like back to back to back of weekends of just like really cool festivals and like stuff going on, and just, you want to come up here? My puppy. But yeah, lots of stuff just back to back to back, and it was just such a cool way. And I was like, it's just the perfect time it was a perfect time for us to move, because we just really fell in love with everything here and just and all of that. And so I think we're just so excited to be able to really connect with other businesses here, to be able to we really see ourselves as wanting to kind of really dig in and put down our roots here, because we just we're excited about the Merrimack Valley. We have loved being here and excited to be here, and so we would love to do similar things like that. When it's hard to imagine fully because there's so many restrictions right now, but in my dream world, eventually we'll be able to participate in the festivals, and we'll be able to host events. Like we're dying to host events. We're excited to do a 2-year anniversary party, but obviously won't be able to do that. And we're working on a cookbook, and we really want to do like a launch party. And so lots of things like that we'll have to think about more towards the future. But in the meantime, we're just so excited to continue to build connections with other businesses, and really kind of become a part of the community here.
I mean, I'm over the moon because I've been wanting to try your stuff for, and sure, I could have gone down to where you were before and gone to another event, but
it's a little bit of a hike though. We still love JP. We love going down to JP,
yeah.
but it's a little bit of a hike now. And I'm like, up here, I also, love to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Cecilia, thank you so much for joining me today
Thank
and
you.
for telling us a little bit about yourself, your family, your business, and your thoughts on everything going on. Our hope is that things continue to move forward and we can become just better people in a better country overall. So, everyone, please, please, please check out Coco Verde Vegan on Instagram and Facebook. Check out their website. It will be included in the bio description below. And I look forward to meeting you in person, Cecilia.
I can't wait. Yes. And we are coming out with a cookbook in a little while, but we do share a lot of recipes on Instagram.
Yes.
And because we do love to make plant-based dishes and just like good food accessible to everybody. And so, I'm excited to connect with you all. I can't wait to connect with you, Timna, in person. It'll be great. And we'll eat a lot of food the day that it happens.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much. You too.
Bye.